Okay, so I've finished putting the steps up and all the way around, as you can see, along with the brickwork as I was working on it, going through and through. And now the staircase is really starting to take shape. So all that's left at this point for putting it together is that top part. So what you want to do is put this to one side. You want to get some foam board and then take that outline from your Scotch tape outline, and you're gonna find a good spot to put it on and just trace that out. Pencil, ballpoint pen, whatever you have handy, really doesn't matter at this point. And once you get that all set up, you want to make sure you get that cut out as well, because this is what turns into the top of the staircase for you. And it's actually kind of a fun way to have it pulled together. Again, you don't need to make sure it's all perfect and smooth all the way around. You really do want those jagged edges because that's what gives it more of that stone look to each step. So just be careful as you're cutting and work it around. And again, you don't have to aim for perfection, but just kind of get it so that you get that basic shape pulled out and ready to go. I just have a couple more cuts to make for mine. Okay, and then in this case, you actually want to peel the paper off both sides this time. And once you do, you still have some room. If you do, just pack some more paper into the top. Again, that just sort of reinforces everything and strengthens that toilet paper roll. And then as you can see, this shape will then work itself onto the top like that. But first you do want to make sure this gets glued to the cardboard form that you created for it. So take your form. I made sure to paint the opposite side black so that when you put the two of them together, it's that much less work you're going to have to do with it. So get out your hot glue gun. Again, important that you make sure you get your edges so that there's enough to keep it all in place. Should be good. And then put your foam board on top. I kind of like to slide it around just a little bit. It kind of mushes that hot glue around for you and make sure everything's really nice and secure. If you have any parts of hot glue sticking out, if your fingers can take it, just sort of smooth those away. And then I just kind of take my fingernail and just break off any major pieces that are sort of hangnail mode on here. In this case, you do want to make sure that you double check for any bits of cardboard that might be hanging over, like right here I have a little spot. So in that case, I'll just take the X-Acto knife and kind of just trim that away just to make it a little bit more easy to work with in this case. Now, in terms of how you want to do the stonework on this, just clear this off a little bit. You can really sort of do whatever you feel looks best aesthetically. I didn't really do a full rhyme or reason. Just keep in mind that this little offshoot is actually what's supposed to act as your last step. So what I will do is just sort of draw that line so it has that wedge shape going on, as you can see. And then again, make sure you have it follow the same pattern that's been going on with your stairs already. So kind of draw another line to break that in half. And then keep going with how you finished off the other steps to break it into a tile work format. And it's definitely worth the end result. You do want to make sure you go over a couple times, just deepen those lines up a little bit. And then in terms of what you can do for this part, first go around, I just kind of did a freehand approach. There's not necessarily a right or wrong to it. It's more what works out best for your aesthetic. So what I basically did is I sort of gave it a Nautilus approach, and I kind of just cut out little squares and worked them around and around each other just to start building everything out. And that gave it more of the look and the effect I was hoping to achieve. So as you can see, that's sort of how I got mine started up. But again, this is more of a personal preference as to how you want to get that done. If you find one way is better for you over the other, then do that. I just kind of am going to freehand it and go around just to get it to the point where I'm like, okay, this is how I want this top to look and how I want it to work. So I'm just going to keep doing this and work it around some more. And then after I get this completed, your next step is going to be gluing this onto the very top, and that gets it so that you can close off the opening of the toilet paper roll, and it'll hold all that lovely shoved in paper for you far better. I'm sure you noticed as you were working on this, you may have had pieces falling out, which is actually okay. The important part is that you want to keep packing that paper back in, because as you pack that, that's what makes your toilet paper roll a little bit stronger and able to hold up to what's going on with the construction of your stair steps. So again, I'm just really going through here and just freehanding it. There's not a static rhyme or reason as to how I'm doing the bricks or why I'm doing the bricks a certain way. I'm just kind of doing more of what I like the look of. So use your eye and your preference for how you want yours to end up looking as well. The fun thing is again, this has more of like that really old ancient look to it. So in that case, it's not too hard to flub up. So if there's, you know, a mistake or a line you didn't mean to happen, that's perfectly okay. In fact, if anything, I think it adds to the charm of your finished piece. And it gives it more of that, oh yeah, this is an ancient castle that they came across somewhere, or, you know, whatever it is you plan on using this for. Really, the whole point is just to enjoy the process of getting it to where you want, and then take off and go running with it. So this is how it ended up looking for mine. So now what you want to do is get your tower with the stairs, and I run a thick bead of the hot glue around the staircase itself. Actually, I find it's easier to do it that way than try and guess where it needs to go. The important thing is make sure you also run the hot glue along the tread of that last step, because what's going to happen is the step on top here, you want to get that to line up along with the curvature, and then just slide that into place. And as you'll see, it gives you your finished step. Okay, so it's at this point where I definitely recommend going through, pulling off all that lovely, lovely webbing of hot glue. And the next thing we're going to do is start getting this coated with a black wash. So if you are doing this as you go along, my black washes I tend to make thinner, just because I find they cover a lot better and they get into the deeper grooves and everything a little bit more. So get that ready, and we're going to take this to the next step in just a second. Alright, so basically what I've done is I've put the top part on, hot glued it on, added in the stonework and everything like that. This acts as your cap, so it keeps all those lovely bits and pieces inside better. Basically, you attach it to that cardboard form that I started off with in the very beginning, and then you'll be good to go. The next thing you want to do is start adding in your black paint. The important thing is that you want to make sure you thin this out. If you don't thin it out, it's going to be going on way too thick, and then you're not going to have sort of a grayish look when you're done. It's the gray look that you want to aim for. You don't want it to be a total jet black, simply because I find that as it's a thinner wash, you can actually play around better with the stone finish. So what I'm going to do is get this all completed, and we'll go from there. Okay, so this has had time to dry. As you can see what I mean by you don't want it to be completely and totally black. You want it to have more of like a dark grayish blackish mix. That's simply because you want the details to kind of show off a little bit more, and I just find that doing it completely flat black, it just doesn't work out as nicely or as detailed as I prefer to have it. So I want to talk about colors that I like to use for this finishing. Basically, I have here a graphite gray, courtesy of Craftsmart. Again, another Michaels find. From that one, we have just plain old gray. I have to keep the bottle upside down because that's almost gone. And then I also use the olive green, also from Craftsmart, a line that I find over at Michaels. So the first thing I'm going to do is take the dark gray, and I'm going to go over the entire thing with the gray as well. The important thing with this is that you don't want to try and get it into every nook and cranny, like as was done with getting the black wash on. So because of that, I prefer to use a nice little angled brush like this one, which hopefully you can see. I find that these work a lot better for doing a dry brushing technique across, or just making sure the bristles don't go in as deep. I also like to work at sort of that 45-degree angle to pull things across. So I'll show you what I mean. Again, I find it far easier to start from the bottom and work your way up and around. So what I do is I will just take that gray and pull it across the top, making sure not to get it too deep into the grooves, because what you want to start happening is you want to start bringing the stonework out again. So again, keep it at a nice 45-degree angle. I find personally works best for me. You don't want to get too much paint onto the brush. Sometimes I'll even use my hand to blot off any excess. I just find that's sort of my quick and faster way of getting that done. But you want to work your way all the way around the staircase with this gray, and it will darken up as it dries, so don't get scared if you're noticing this is a little bit lighter than what you anticipated. It will darken up. It will give you that darker stone-like look as you go through. But as you can see, as the gray goes on, it starts to pull it out, the details of the stone and the brick and all that stuff. You just put all that effort into, which is what you want to have happen. So I'm just going to go around here and get this covered with my gray. If you find that you don't like how the stonework looks, like you want it to look a little bit darker, by all means you can go back and do another black wash. Just make sure you keep that wash super thin, so that way it falls more into the lines and doesn't essentially just recoat everything. Because if you get it to recoat everything, you're pushing yourself back a couple steps, which you don't want to have to do. So again, keep pulling through with the gray, and you'll find that you start getting all those details coming out that before were kind of hidden away when it was just white, also when it was sort of just in the black wash mode. So I'm going to keep going around and get this completely covered. This is another step where you want to make sure you give this plenty of time to dry. If you're impatient and you want to get moving ahead on this a little bit more, use a hairdryer. I'm not even kidding, it works beautifully. So I'm going to finish getting this all covered in gray, and we'll pick back up from there.